Frank Puppet Martinez entered federal prison in the late 1990s on racketeering charges, but his life sentence didn't end his power, it only expanded it. From inside maximum security facilities like ADX Florence, he controlled a criminal empire stretching from LA to Mexico and to Central America, pulling in $50,000 a week from MacArthur Park alone. At the center of this network was the 18th Street Gang, a transnational organization with 30,000 to 50,000 members. His mafia didn't just control his neighborhood, he controlled entire cities through the Mexican Mafia, a powerful criminal organization that operated within the prison walls, influencing street operations from the inside. Now, Martinez's grip on the gang wasn't limited to just street corners or onto drug deals. He controlled who sold what, who paid taxes, who lived, and who died. He made these decisions while locked away in federal prison, unable to walk free in society, but way more powerful than ever before. By 2002, when Martinez was convicted, he'd already cemented his power. The Colombian Lil Psychos, a subgroup of the 18th Street Gang, controlled vital areas like West Lake and MacArthur Park, hoods where drug dealers, street vendors, and small businesses paid regular taxes to the gang, a form of extortion. Court documents revealed that MacArthur Park alone generated tens of thousands of dollars every week. Vendors paid anywhere from $50 to $100 a week, some even paying a percentage of their sales directly to CLCS. Martinez, locked away in a federal prison, communicated these orders through coded language with the help of his wife, Janie Garcia, who became his voice on the streets. Now, every week she visited him in prison, passed through metal detectors, and sat under the watchful eyes of prison cameras. She left with a list of names and instructions on who to extort, eliminate, or hurt. It wasn't just messages and orders that was exchanged through all these prison visits. See, Martinez needed to move money, a lot of money. Drug money, extortion money, and even money to pay for his lawyer's fees, his commissary accounts, and the families of gang members. Now this is where Isaac Gillian, a licensed attorney, entered into the picture. Now Gillian had no criminal record and was a member in good standing with the California Bar Association. To the world, he was just another lawyer doing his job. But to the gang, he was their banker. See, through his position, Gillian used attorney-client privilege, a sacred rule in American law that keeps conversations between lawyers and their clients private in order to relay criminal instructions. Over $1.3 million in drug proceeds and extortion money flowed through Gillian's accounts. See, he would meet Martinez under the guise of legal consultation, but would use all these visits to discuss everything from drug shipments to assassination targets. The operations continued without missing a beat. Every week, street vendors in MacArthur Park paid their taxes, sometimes more than 30% of their gross earnings. Now, this wasn't just a few drug dealers here and there. This was an entire industry. Food vendors, flower sellers, and DVD vendors all had to pay their dues. Now, if they didn't, the consequences was dire. The muscle behind this operation was the Toros, the enforcers who were sent to remind people why paying was non-negotiable. But even with all the money moving around, the FBI wasn't blind to what was happening. See, the authorities had their sights on Martinez and the CLCS operations. They began intercepting phone calls, tapping into prison communications, and flipping informants. Now, first, Martinez's coded language slipped past law enforcement, but over time they learned how to decode his messages. When he said that somebody needed to collect rent or clean up the neighborhood, it was pretty clear he was discussing extortion and murder. Slowly, the feds put together a dictionary of terms, mapping out Martinez's web of crime. Now, even with all the money flowing, the FBI was closing in on Martinez and the CLCS. Agents tapped phones, monitored prison calls, and flipped insiders. Now, first, Martinez's coded phrases like collect rent or clean up the neighborhood went unnoticed. But over time, investigators built a full dictionary translating his orders to extortion and murder. The turning point came in September 15, 2007, when street vendor Francisco Clemente refused to pay a $50 tax. See, his defiance threatened the entire extortion system. Trying to prove himself, 24-year-old CLCS soldier Glavani Macho confronted him. Now, Macho fired, but the bullet hit Clemente's 23-day-old son, Luis Angel Garcia, killing the infant, an act that violated the Mexican Mafia's deepest code. Now from prison, Martinez had to respond. The order was clear. Macho had to die for exposing the gang and killing a kid. Now Macho fled, but CLCS member Javier Perez tricked him into going into Mexico where he was beaten and thrown off of a cliff. Now miraculously, this dude survived and later became a government witness, revealing CLCS's drug trade, extortion system, and Martinez's commands. Macho's testimony was invaluable. He exposed the inner workings of the gang, detailing the drug operations, the extortion schemes, and even the role Martinez played in directing everything from his prison cell. Yeah, but Macho wasn't the only one to flip, man. Juan Termite Romero, another respected member of CLCS, was also targeted by Martinez. When Martinez ordered Termite's death, Termite knew something was wrong, so he flipped, providing the FBI with critical information about the gang's structure, their operations, and their communications. You fast forward, by 2009, the FBI was ready. They arrested 43 members of the CLCS, charging them with racketeering, murder, conspiracy, extortion, and drug trafficking. The entire case, built on wiretaps, surveillance footage, financial records, and the testimony of 2 former members, unraveled the criminal empire that Martinez had built. But Martinez, already convicted in 2002, wasn't affected by any of these new charges. See, he was locked away for life, but his influence over the gang still loomed large. Now, the legal ramifications here was immense. Isaac Gillian, who had acted as the gang's banker, was disbarred and sentenced to 7 years in a federal prison. The Mexican Mafia's grip on SoCal was shaken but not broken. Martinez's empire was dismantled, but it didn't die. New shot callers would emerge, younger and more reckless, ready to take over the gang. Now, in the years since, MacArthur Park has remained gang territory. Street vendors still pay taxes, drug dealers still claim corners, and that whole cycle of violence continues. The gang, weakened but not destroyed, continues to recruit new members. The streets are still under siege, and the cycle that began with Frank Martinez's criminal empire, that's far from over. The systemic failure remains. How does a man in maximum security federal prison control the streets? How do prison walls meant to contain criminals become meaningless? Now, the answer to that question lies in the broken prison system, outdated communication tools, and the willingness of corrupt professionals like lawyers to exploit their positions. Even with the best surveillance techniques in the FBI's efforts, gangs have adapted faster, using encrypted messaging and new communication channels to stay one step ahead of law enforcement and the feds. The story of Frank Martinez isn't just one of a man in prison controlling a criminal empire. It's a story of an entire system, one that allows gang members to rise and thrive even behind bars. It's a story of how law enforcement can only do so much to disrupt operations, but can't eliminate the underlying issues: poverty, lack of opportunity, and broken systems. Until those issues are addressed, the gangs is going to continue to recruit, the cycle's going to continue, and the next Frank Martinez is going to rise. And that's the real tragedy. Martinez may be locked up, but his empire still lives on. The systems that created him are still in place. And as long as that's the case, the cycle of violence, crime, and tragedy, it's never gonna end.